So what's a book you're reading now or a top recommendation?
So there's a few. Right now, I just started the 15 Commitments of Conscious Leadership, but a few of my all-time favorites, Setting the Table by Danny Meyer, I think is a great one. The Hard Thing About Hard Things is another great one. 0 to 1. I think a lot of these are more so around business and company building, but I tend to gravitate to those books a lot.
And so I've been reading a number of books. The most recent one was called Decisive, but I've read Decisive, The Paradox of Choice, Thinking in Bets. And by the time I'm done with this, I want to compile it up to see what are ways that we should think about how we can be decisive and can really make use of the technologies coming, but also take advantage of this human nature that we have, because we don't want to lose that and hand everything over to a computer at some point 15 years from now, right? And so anyways, that's one thing I've been thinking about lately. And
I've read it 3 times and I'll read it a 4th. No Rules Rules, written by Aaron Meyer and Reed Hastings, that documents the inner workings of Netflix company culture. Paradigm shifting. Jamie, if I come back on here in 10 years on your podcast, I'm still going to be saying that book had a profound impact on me, and I picked it up at the right time.
Hands down, it's not something I'm reading now, but it's a book I'd recommend. I have recommended to many folks, not even in the restaurant industry, but it's called Unreasonable Hospitality. That book is in the restaurant industry. It's from Will Guidara, following the journey of them making 11 Madison Park, I think the world's #1 rated restaurant at whatever time frame that was. But there's just so many concepts of that book that apply outside of the restaurant industry around just your general practices and how you build, that I thought were just great for anyone that wants to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah, I'll give you 2. So my favorite book is a book called The Innovator's Solution, follow on from The Innovator's Dilemma by Clay Christensen. Really iconic.
Somewhere. Yep.
Yeah, really iconic business book, strategy book, and has helped guide a lot of my strategy decisions and thinking. Just amazing book. And something I'm reading right now is a book called Challenger Sale. So I'm always reading all kinds of books in different domains, and Challenger Sale is one that keeps coming up, and I'm kind of halfway through it now, and it's a good one if you're interested in sales or just persuading people. It's a good one.
One of the books that's really influenced me is, again, I'm completely forgetting the name, but it was by the founders of Pixar, Creativity Inc. I think that's the one. The way they ran their company. He had a really good saying that, I give stock options to my employees and they vest on a monthly basis, not on a yearly basis. And his rationale was, if somebody wants to clock out after 8 or 9 months, guess what? They would stick around for another 3 months. They will poison the atmosphere of the company just to have their shares vest.
Right.
I don't want you in my company. You have a monthly vesting. You can leave whenever you want. And that's the philosophy we follow too.
Well, there's an old-time book has always been one of my favorites, called Undaunted Courage by, I guess, Peter Ambrose. And it's really about the Lewis and Clark expedition, how they got through, everything, and really without much harm to the crew. And it was really exploring a lot of incredible places in the U.S. before it was really explored for mapping and other reasons. And that's an old-time book, one of my favorites.
Probably from a recommendation perspective, I said this, you heard that.
Okay.
I think not only from a career perspective, but from a personal perspective as well. Depending upon it outlines, it goes through the typical, are you a red, yellow, green, blue personality? How do you speak to the different personalities? And communication is vital in your development, not only as an individual in your personal life, but in your professional life. And understanding how to communicate, especially as a leader, is extremely important.
So the funny thing is I used to read a decent amount of books a year, but then more recently, again, same thing, maybe the last 2 to 3 years, I kind of got into a habit. I forget where I heard this, and it just gave me the permission because of, instead of going for quantity, just repeating the same book. So short answer is right now, the books that I'm rereading, like literally third, fourth time. One is $100 Million Offers by Alex Hormozi. And again, I don't read it from front to back again. I go to a few chapters and really try to understand certain concepts and apply it and then go back and read it again. So that one, and then $100 Million Leads, just specifically because it's, I really like reading business books. And the third one that I read, again, I'm not reading front to end. I go to certain chapters and I reread them, is Storytelling with Data, which was a recommendation from one of my podcast guests, and just had a better show data, and that was interesting to me from a Wisk perspective of like how we can help restaurateurs. But those are the three that come to mind. And a piece of advice there, just maybe for people listening, is especially on the business side, don't be shy to just, once you read it once, focus on the few chapters and reread those few chapters 10 times if you have to, because I find those are the most useful when you actually take things out and implement it. If not, you're just reading the same way you might just watch a Netflix show. If you're not applying anything.
I will echo you 100%. I mean, you see a bunch of books back there, but I have found myself going back and rereading. So two things. One, like I tell people when I interview, I read a chapter every day from this book. How to Win Friends and Influence People. Yeah, classic book. A chapter a day. Takes a couple minutes, and especially since I know the material, I skim through it.
Right.
So it's not overwhelming. And so if you tell me, oh, I'm busy, I can't read. Listen, read for 5 minutes a day.
Exactly.
10 minutes a day. Don't get overwhelmed that says you got to do a whole book. So I find myself going through stuff I read some new stuff as well, but reread stuff because especially I'm getting older. My brain, holy cow. I can tell you, I've read this book probably 10 times, but every time I read it, I'm like, it's like
something new.
You need to get refreshed. That's how my brain is anyway.